The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on MH Radio. We're open line through till 1. One of the big news stories, of course, the Earystane windfarm plans. Anything to say regarding that? The future of public sector housing. Ben McCree stepping in as the Manxman is kind of sitting there looking at a naval in port at the moment. What went wrong over the weekend? And also we're looking forward to seeing Matty, 24-year-old Matty, in the new series of Big Brother, started last night. Contestant from the Isle of Man, a 24-year-old doctor, works in the geriatric department, who loves old people. So we've got a Manx person, a Manxman in Big Brother on Channel 4. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Richie just said, I share doubts on Manx Utilities Earystane figures. I come at it from the opposite standpoint. Last year, the UK's 11,600 wind turbines generated 80,000 gigawatt hours of electricity, 7 gigawatt hours per annum per turbine, which is 35 gigawatts per annum for 5 turbines working together. Typical turbines rated 2.7 megawatts. But if our 5 could really achieve 20 megawatts together and from that generate normal levels of output, they would still only be making 10 gigawatts per annum each, thus 50 gigawatts per annum in all. Are you following this? This is not 130 gigawatts per annum the Manx Utilities predict for the wind farm. 130 gigawatts per annum is 74% of the 175 gigawatts per annum maximum that 20 megawatts could deliver as per the industry formula to convert megawatts to gigawatts. No wind farm has ever approached that level. UK onshore wind farms do well to achieve 30% of their installed maximum capacity, so why would we do so much better? Is Manx wind better than everybody else's wind? Residents in the south of the Isle of Man are said to be disappointed in Manx Utilities' decision to progress the Earystane and Scard site for a wind farm. Now, the community member who is Kiri Jenkins, Kiri said that nobody in the area was directly consulted about the plans and believes residents' views need to be heard. Kiri Jenkins also said that apart from the fact that nobody's been consulted and residents need to be heard, the MUA proposals include monitoring wind speeds with a sonic detection and ranging device, SODAR, for the next year, as well as carrying out assessments in 12 areas. This is Kiri Jenkins' view.
Community members say reports recently published on the MUA website vividly illustrate the significant impact this development is poised to have on the character of the southern uplands and the huge infrastructure implications for the south of the island. The government's apparent disregard for the community's wishes in planning this development, which is being rushed through to hit a political set deadline of 2026, is deeply disheartening and could cost the Manx taxpayer dearly. The reports from Wardle Armstrong cautioned placing any weight on the predicted generation figure and subsequent economic analysis as part of the decision-making process. Our community implores both the government and the wider public to consider the far-reaching effects on the delicate balance of the local environment. We highlight shortcomings within the reports which undermine any confidence in the environmental impact assessments. And we plea for more thoughtful decision-making. Residents call for increased community involvement, emphasising the lack of any direct consultation with residents and businesses impacted within the 2-kilometre study area. We still haven't been consulted. And what's disheartening to read is that the consultants have recommended that early engagement with residents is very important. So the questions that community have: did Coman have the full picture when they took their decision earlier this year to support a wind farm in the Manx uplands. It should have been taken into account before the Council of Ministers gave the go-ahead. There's been no debate in Tynwald on the principle of the onshore wind farm. There's been no specific vote in favour, and as we know, there's been no public consultation on the subject. There are large numbers of unknowns that can dramatically skew the outcome.
That's Kiri Jenkins, a community representative, talking about this decision to progress the Earystane and Scard site for a wind farm. Obviously, information needs to come out, and it would appear not every piece of information has come out in the progress towards this. I just wonder what your thoughts are regarding this, particularly if you live in the south of the Isle of Man, particularly if you're going to see this thing out of one of your windows or you're going to drive by it every day. Now, maybe you think that this is, as Michelle Hayward said, one of the Russian MHKs said that, when she sees a wind turbine on shore, she sees a community that's progressing and embracing the future. Is that your view? It may well be your view of this, and that you think this is the way that we have to go, and somebody's going to have to bear having this thing around them. Perhaps you absolutely welcome the fact that it would be there. Perhaps you want to see it out of your back window or front window, but maybe you don't. So let's get to the bottom of this. What are your thoughts? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And Howard's on with us. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Funny enough, I've just come in through the door and I heard you talking about the wind farms, and I'm almost certain it was one of the spokespersons, nowadays we call them, of the MUA, and their reference, it was almost an obscene reference to the public of the island who are paying for all this and will pay for many, many years. The stakeholders. Now that to me is a derogative term, and it's book read and they're book taught. They haven't got life experience, and this one was on the radio this morning, and I'm almost certain it was from the MUA. It's only sounded like a teenager thrown in the pot to put out a pre-written speech. But what I'd say, I was on internet last night, and we've often heard of these dumps where they put these blades and the columns and everything, and they're having one hell's own job of getting rid of them because they're indestructible, and leaving them now quite literally to rot, which is going to take thousands of years. And there was something like hundreds of thousands of these things in different parts of America, and the same thing's going to happen in Britain and various other parts of the world. So they're not recyclable, as far as I'm aware now. They may have a modern system of doing it, but there's tens of thousands of them out there that are not recyclable, and they're going to be extremely difficult to dispose of. But what annoys me intensely is that the MUA have taken it upon themselves to go ahead with this. They installed an expensive piece of machinery on one of the places, going to move it up next year, and then they were going to look at the results of these two pieces of equipment to see whether it's worth progressing. But they've already gone into the procurement stage. So somebody's diving headlong in here, and the question I need to ask is, who is going to sign this off and going to be responsible? Because we all know the fiasco that happened down at the power station of Polrose. There was £120 million there, loan taken out through Barclays, unauthorised loan. And the ones that were in the power to be in the MUA at the time all denied knowledge, all denied responsibility, and all got away with it. There was never any heads rolled. They all got away with it. So is the same thing going to happen? And we're going to be talking about hundreds, and I mean hundreds of millions to do this job. It's not just putting it up, it's the maintenance afterwards. And it's a 25-year period where there's going to have to be serious money every year thrown after these wind turbines.
And also, Howard, there was a power station before there at Pulley. You know, there was an existing site and there are main roads all the way around there.
All the way there is.
This is in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And it's all going to have to be cabled in. Now, if my memory serves me right, when they put the connecting cable in from Bispham to the Isle of Man, I'll stand corrected on this if need be, it came in at Port Skillion.
Yeah, it did. Just below us.
Yeah, went up over the top of where you are at Max Radio, around that neck of the woods, and down to the old original power station next to the Saddle Hotel.
That's right, by the Ridgeway, by the bottom of Ridgeway Street.
That's right, and it was split into 3 sections, and then it transversed up to Polrose Power Station. And that's one of the reasons why that job that was doing the Polrose Bridge was so expensive, because the power cable for Bispham transverses up around that way into the power station. So we've got a perfectly adequate system, a perfectly adequate building, and there they are going to build a new whole system. And what are they going to do? They're going to use the power station down in Douglas for storage and for data. They could just build a little place somewhere if they put the computers in these days for their data. They don't have to have a place like that. Why don't they get sense before it becomes too expensive and just put 2 new engines in? As we said last week, like the Irish company are building a gas-powered station in 2023. Why can't the Isle of Man do that and be totally independent and have a continuous 24/7, 365-day supply of electricity? So there's either the wind farm, which to me is ridiculous, and another silly item now is to put another connector cable in, and again, you're talking serious money. You don't go out and buy a new bike when you've already got one in the garage. And that's what they're doing. They've got a perfectly adequate building, a perfectly adequate system for distribution, but they wish to build something totally different and spend millions of our money.
And I think that's a point worth restating, is that it may be that some of the people involved in this, in the PR side, perhaps are new to the Isle of Man. And the fact is, we don't have anonymous subscribers on the Isle of Man. We're not faceless consumers. Everybody knows everybody here. So, you're loading money onto people that you may well know, and their children and grandchildren in the future.
Well, that's a recent certainty. And just look what happened this last weekend, and I still don't know if it's been rectified because I haven't looked at the full news. Jersey, they were without gas all over the weekend because the electricity supply went off, and they're on butane, so they'll be bringing in liquid butane and reheating it to pass around the systems. They don't use the natural gas that we have, it's imported butane. And the electricity for the whole of the island went off, and they were unable to distribute or produce any gas. And that was going to be the whole weekend before they get it rectified.
Okay, so everything is fine until something goes wrong. And if something goes wrong, you have to have a plan B. And at the moment, it will be interesting to know. We have plan A. This is their plan A. But what's plan B? What's the contingency?
Well, I think the headless chicken syndrome kicks in there. But not only that, but you've got these towers, and they are towers at the end of the day. You've got to have specialised people to go up inside them to maintain them, and anything that goes wrong with them, are they going to get pieces here all of a sudden, or are they going to just wait until the boat can sail? And it would have to be a proper special boat, because these things are 40 foot long, these the arms on the towers. There would have to be a specialist boat brought in. So what about the depletion of
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah. Okay, all right. Thanks, Howard.
Okay, take care.
Good to talk to you. Eddie's on now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, are you all right?
Good, thanks. Yeah, what about yourself?
A little bit disappointed in the stupidity of the government again. I think Howard had one word. I've got my word would be lunacy, really. I just can't understand for one iota why they've gone this way again. Everybody I know doesn't want it. Everything I have studied towards it doesn't make any sense. They got in on a green agenda, right? And I've pointed out to you that on 27 reasons why it's not green. There is nothing green about wind farms. The next thing is we're very quick to forget. I can remember a few months back, Rishi Sunak was actually stating that he's for wind farms on land as long as it goes with the consent of the local people. Right? I've heard again and again and again that nobody is being asked or even notified as regards what's going on. There's something very wrong going on. The other thing is, a lot of the younger people in the Isle of Man voted for this slightly green agenda, and I've noticed that a lot of them are now questioning why they've been conned, because it's not green. So the vote, I think, would be totally different if they'd have been given the truth to begin with. There isn't a single thing about the whole thing. There should be an inquiry into it. And from what I gather, there's going to be absolute massive public protests about this. So I think the government had better beware. And another thing that may be a good idea is can we have a count as regards how many MHKs are for it and how many are against it? One other tiny little item is Alf Cannon seems to want to rush this ahead. I read somewhere that his father was against them.
What about the idea of offshore wind farms? If Ørsted, if this company wants to lease our seabed and stick up a wind farm off the east of the Isle of Man to bring us, and that would give us some money from revenues from renting out our seabed, do you think that's a good idea?
Well, the two things I nearly forgot to actually mention was last week on national television, Rishi Sunak has stated that he's going to pump so much money into looking at ways of generating from the sea. All the way through this, I have pointed out that we're surrounded by water. We've got a dam which could even be extended or made more efficient. Water everywhere, and yet Rishi Sunak is now saying it's not reliable, this wind. We are going to have to look at other things, and he's giving out all sorts of incentives at the moment. So let's dive on that one. Let's keep the power station as we've got until then. Let's just do a complete U-turn, because it is lunacy is the correct word. And I've also heard, by the way, that we've even got spares for some of the power station at the moment in storage. So why not keep the power station we've got now, which is proven, right? Regardless of what goes on, it's going to cost us money. But the wind farm one is just going down the wrong street completely, because after 15 to 20 years, you've got to do it all again. That's the lifespan of these things. Now it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter as people find out the truth. OK, all right, Eddie, thanks for calling today. Pleasure.
All
Bye.
Right, 12 on Manx Radio. There are many arguments, says Big John Laxey. Many arguments against the wind farm at Earystane, but one main factor people aren't taking on board is our children's future. We need to think of children when making a decision. And also, John said, I was travelling on the mountain road on Sunday and encountered two cyclists. In the interest of safety, surely cycles aren't safe on the mountain road. Very concerned. I just wonder what your thoughts are. Do you cycle across the mountain? Is that the way you need to do it? And also, could you give me a hand here? I'm trying to figure out now. The Sulby Reservoir was finished, I think, 1982, 83 it was finished. I'm trying to remember, was it 18 months or so that it took to build the Sulby Reservoir? And where was all the all the building, the vehicles and everything, where was the spoil taken away from? Which way did they surely didn't go up the Sulby Glen Road, so they must have come over the mountain. Bearing in mind, that's probably the biggest infrastructure job that we've had on the Isle of Man in the past, well, apart from the battery pier, but maybe the Sulby Reservoir was bigger than the battery pier in terms of infrastructure. Now, it's been a resounding success. It is the largest reservoir on the Isle of Man, 154 odd acres. How long did it take to build the Sulby Reservoir? To the answer phone now.
Hi, Andy. This is Daisy. I'm just ringing up with regards to when Mr. Allinson was on your programme. Mr. Allinson was asked if a person who requested assisted dying, stroke suicide, where would person stand legally in regards to life insurance? Mr. Allinson stated assisted suicide would not be recorded on a death certificate. Cause of death would be what the patient was admitted to hospital with. So relevant people would still receive person's insurance. Would there be a paper trail, i.e., with regards to assisted dying, i.e., who administered medication, the time and date and signature of the person who did administer the medication? And also, if assisted suicide is not recorded as cause of death, is this not a lie? And also, if you can still receive life insurance due to assisted suicide not being registered, is this not fraud? So, Andy, if you, please, Andy, or Julian or Juan, explain it to me, I might have got it wrong. Thank you again, and thank you for your programme and for giving people a voice. Thank you, Andy.
Well, Dr. Allinson, thank you, Daisy. Good to hear from you. Dr. Allinson said, and of course nothing's gone through Tynwald yet. It's not been confirmed yet or given a statute, that if someone chooses assisted dying under our legislation, that it will be the underlying cause, the condition that they were suffering from before they chose assisted dying, that would be recorded on the death certificate, and thus life insurance would be paid out. Well, we haven't had a final word on that yet. It hasn't got near the statute book. Something we're just going to watch. In fact, if you're in the insurance trade or were in the insurance trade, I wonder what your thoughts are.
Feeding friends and family with the finest the island has to offer. The Forge Smokehouse and Grill Santon. Fresh Manx produce marinated, slowly cooked, grilled and smoked to perfection right here and served in a gorgeous setting. Just walk in anytime, no booking needed. Parties, family gatherings and weddings, the perfect venue for any occasion. And don't forget our large marquee for any event. Visit theforge.im and see.
This old house needed new windows. This old house needed a new door. And with DPM Conservatories, we got all that and more. Now our bills are lower and the house is warmer too. We're cleaner and we're greener since we swapped our old for new. Stunning A+ rated replacement windows and doors, expertly fitted by DPM Conservatories. Phone 612 333 or find them on Facebook and swap your old for new.
Wherever life leads you, let us lend a hand with an HSBC personal loan. Maybe you've got big plans for a special celebration, new car or home renovation, or you want to get your finances in order by consolidating your debts. We offer competitive rates and a quick decision process. You'll be able to access your funds as soon as we approve the loan. Search HSBC Loans and get in touch today.
View full terms and eligibility criteria on the HSBC website. HSBC Bank PLC is licensed by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
This winter, Manx Petroleum will keep the island warm. For the homemakers, for the bedtime storytellers, for the work-at-homers, and for the careful spenders. This winter, the island's longest-serving distributor will be warming thousands of homes with our premium heating oil. With minimum orders from just 250 litres to keep your outgoings low, Manx Petroleum, always here for you. For details and ordering, visit mp.in.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this weekend, you could win £200 to spend at the Other Place in Ramsey, courtesy of Miller Chaps, the only place you need for a great new look for your home.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
And then make sure you join us for Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning to find out if you're the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Vivian. Hi, Vivian.
Hi. You're talking about Sulby Reservoir?
Yeah.
I think it was started in late 79 and it finished about 81. I have got all the information somewhere, but not to hand. And the road from the reservoir back up to the bungalow was widened. That's all that was done.
Right. So, I mean, there must have been dozens and dozens of trucks going up there.
Yes. They had all their own machinery in the reservoir, dumper trucks, all sorts of things. I thought they were all taken back to England, but I might be wrong, because there's nowhere to hide them in the reservoir.
Okay, so this thing took the best part of 3 years, you reckon, to finish?
I reckon between 2 and 3 years. But if I looked back, I would find out, and Princess Alexandra came and opened it.
Right, okay. All right, that's great. Vivian, thanks for calling today.
That's all right.
Good to hear from you. So if Sulby Reservoir is the biggest infrastructure project, and I'm guessing, can you think of any bigger ones? I mean, obviously the interconnector was big in its own regard, but in terms of connecting the Isle of Man, not as big. The gas interconnector, big, but no, and they did go across a lot of land from Peel through to the power station. But would you say that Sulby was... So I'm just trying to put in context what we're going to need to put up a wind farm in the south of the Isle of Man. And access roads are important, because bearing in mind that the road from the bungalow to Sulby Reservoir was there anyway, it just got widened, and you have access from the bungalow to Douglas on a main road. But getting up to Earystane, you just wonder what would have to happen. Here's a note in from Danita just saying, my grandson wants to return to Isle of Man College and sit HNC in IT, having completed 3 years already. Now he's got to have an apprenticeship first. He's 19 years of age. Manx contacted recruitment agencies, but hasn't got a response. If he can't get an apprenticeship, he has to pay for the course, and at age 19, can't afford it. So surely there has to be a way through for this. Thank you, Danita. Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Before I get on to the wind thing, in answer to Daisy's point, I'm just wondering why we're going down the route of industrial, and I shall quote Peter Murcott here, suicide, when there's constant stories about the hospice never getting any funding. Why are we going that route, whereas why aren't we making sure that the hospice is fully funded and no worries about any kind of money for treatments?
Why would you see hospice as an alternative to the assisted dying bill?
Well, people say that they want to die with dignity, and I totally understand that. But we've had, how many news things have we read, not just over here, but in the UK, where hospices are constantly saying we will have to ration our services because of lack of funding. You know, I mean, the drugs that are involved are a very, very tiny version of what is being given to people, the 380 tablets, etc. And there's another side to this as well. Do you remember a few years ago, there was a child called Asher King, whose father took him out of hospital because he had a brain tumour and he'd heard about a proton beam therapy in the Czech Republic. And he was basically arrested when he got to his place in Spain in preparation to go to the Czech Republic. But in the end, because he'd left a YouTube video saying exactly what he was doing, he managed to get the child there. That child made a full remission. So there's new treatments as well, like that. And since then, Manchester has actually installed one of those, and they're having fantastic success with it.
Yeah, I remember, weren't his parents were arrested in Spain, if I remember rightly?
Correct. They did an Interpol pan-European arrest warrant for him. Ironically, there was a Latvian guy who'd murdered a girl in the UK, and they didn't issue one for him when he fled the UK, but they went for this father.
What do we learn from that case then, Julian, do you think?
That there are therapies that perhaps because the NHS can't afford a proton beam therapy at the time, that provided a very, very good, focused, non-damaging or least damaging cure for a brain tumour that they said was incurable. So, the thing with assisted dying is the one treatment where you can't talk to your doctor afterwards to see of the efficacy of it, can you? Do you know what I mean? It's not a case of, do you feel better now? It's done and dusted, isn't it?
This is, I personally, I don't feel qualified to speak on this. I'll certainly raise the issue, but I think that this is such a personal, it's such a personal matter for people. You've heard very eloquent testimony from people who have degenerative conditions who want to decide when they depart this world. And I don't feel qualified. I don't feel qualified to speak on their behalf, nor qualified to speak against their wishes. So I just wonder where society goes from this, Julian.
Well, I think that the parallel argument, and I totally understand people's wishes to have it. I totally get it. But there are people who deserve the death penalty. Why don't we have the death penalty anymore? Because of mistakes that were made. I mean, the one in 1956, I think it was, or perhaps in the early 60s, I can't remember exactly, but a guy was put to death, and it turned out that his roommate was the serial killer. It's a bit easy to make mistakes sometimes when it comes to something so permanent. I'll rush on because I'm sure you've got other callers. An article in the Scottish Daily Record newspaper recently titled "Storm of Protest Over Cuckoobrashire's Wind Farm Plans." Hundreds of people are opposing the developers' RES's scheme for up to 22 800-foot-high turbines in Minigaff Parish. Plans at an exhibition in Newton Stewart revealed the closest tower would stand just 2 miles north, right in the line of sight of the Galloway Hills, which the town depends on for its tourism. They're also concerned that the wind farmer's assertion of new jobs created would only be short-term, whereas lost tourism would be permanent. Of the 300 attendees at the exhibition, 97% said they did not want the wind farm in any form.
Well, we wait and we watch. What do you think about the narrative that's going on regarding Earystane from Manx Utilities and the government?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go sideways here. Do you remember there's been a couple of people who remember that somewhere near the Cronkyvoddy area, there were a couple of test wind turbines back in the 60s.
Yes, I heard tale about those, yeah.
If you go on the Manx Museum's imuseum.im website and search for wind power experiments, it details the 1960 wind turbine experiment at Little London. And I quote, "The report states that output has been severely restricted due at first to lack of wind. The total for the year ended March 31st, 1961 was only 7,220 units. Well, 7,220 units is enough for 2 houses. And that's just the electric. That's not even the heating. So that was the experiment at Little London. And it's on our own website. So perhaps anybody that says that I go on social media to look for these things, have a look on the iMuseum for wind power experiments. It's right there.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, good to hear from you. And I think, if I'm right, we had the gentleman came on and said he saw it happen. He saw the wind turbine spin away into nowhere at Cronkyvoddy, and it was the day that the Peeper Dawn was launched in Ramsey. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just regarding the reservoir up at Salty Will there, it was actually Shepherd Hill who actually did the work up there, right. And the trucks were brought in and they all went back, because you're talking about huge dumper trucks and machinery that we don't have on the island. And can I just say, when we're looking at and don't forget the other thing that happened on the island too was French Kia, when they did the Stabbits down at the breakwater.
Yeah, of course.
You know, we have to look to the future and have to look when we're not here. And you're leaving that something for the children to say that it's sustainable. They want to live on the island. They still enjoy themselves. We've still got loads of green areas there, but we have to go somewhere forward. And I don't decry the MEA, or whatever they're called now, the Energy Board. There's no chairman yet, is there? Is still Tim Krugel still incumbent until he's changed?
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, good luck to Tim, actually. I respect him. I respect him jumping over to the DOI to get things done. But we need to look at, and my time when I was in the Water Authority slightly for a little while there, I remember them talking about the amount of water that requires to run the turbine down Thalty Will there. You're talking about, I think it's off the top of my head, a few hours, and the reservoir level goes down dramatically, which would worry the professional people that look after the reservoir there. So I know it does rain a lot in the Isle of Man, but we don't have massive storage, and it was a big issue. It was a leap of faith when we put the power station in. We put the breakwater done and the reservoir at Shepherd Hill done. Lots of money and a brand new hospital. You remember?
You bet. So I'm trying to... would I be right in saying that the Sulby Reservoir was the biggest civil engineering job ever on the Isle of Man, do you reckon?
Probably. I would say so. It employed... I remember loads of... Well, the Manx people... There must be people that worked as joiners there, steel workers, I forget what they're called now. They do the metal bits to put, and concreters that went, I think most of the concrete, I think there was a batching plant. They brought a batching plant. I remember the one French Kia down near Santon Way there. They built a particular area and put the batching plant in to do the concrete. But I think a lot of people on the Isle of Man have got to look to say, what are we going to do for the future? Is the government supporting people to put in green energy into their buildings? Are they giving us a grant? I'd love to get about £5,000 or £6,000 for each person that lives in a property in the Isle of Man to get their initiatives done and reduce the amount of pull we need to do. And I'd love to have in the sea there, the tidal thing. I think it's down Jersey or Guernsey way. They do one there, and there's one in Ireland somewhere where it's a sea sledge which has turbines that sink into the sea there, and when the tide goes in and out, it makes electricity. We have to think out of the box and make sure that something's going to happen in the future that actually works.
Okay, David, I appreciate that. Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. So many arguments, says John, against green energy. The big picture is the world is on course to self-destruction, says John. Rising sea level, drought, storms, flooding. We have to think about our future for the children. They just deserve a future like ours. And thank you from WhatsApper 262. I've just emailed you an article by Matt Ridley regarding the wind farm mentioned in the Telegraph. Thank you for that. Can't read it now. We'll read it later. No matter what people say about wind farms and other stuff, says Andy, the government will go ahead with the project. That's why the majority of the public don't believe a word they say. Thank you. Those are your words, Andy. Thanks for that input. I'm so sick and tired of people telling us what we can and can't do with our own bodies. If I want to end my life, I should be allowed that right to do it. There are treatments for cancer. It's not chemo and radiation. It's very sensitive for a lot of people, as we've almost all suffered the loss of somebody close to us, says Texter 108, just regarding Dr. Allinson's assisted dying bill. Just about every general election candidate made reference to green issues. Quite right, they did, G313. So a vote for an MHK wasn't necessarily a vote for their green aims. So I think the government should have a referendum on the windmills, the wind farms. Thank you, G. The biggest infrastructure on the Isle of Man surely is the roundabout at Balakilawi. Thank you. Assisted dying, says Jeff. If we're to have this facility, it needs to be whiter than white to the rest of the world. If this is above board and not some underhand misthought scheme, particularly will this involve falsifying death certificates? Well, I can probably say unequivocally it won't. Texter 154 Jeff, Dr. Allenson has said that this won't be for anybody to just walk in. You have to be resident on the Isle of Man for at least 2 years. And also, this will have to be obviously verified by GPs and medical practitioners and professionals if it happens, perhaps indeed when it happens. I just wonder how you would feel if you went off the Isle of Man and you were asked by somebody who didn't live on the Isle of Man how you felt about assisted dying being legal on the Isle of Man. Do you think it's a bold step to the future? Or do you think that it's not? And also, we haven't heard, says, this is Maddie. Hi, Maddie. Just saying, where is this Earystane wind farm going to connect to? Where is the nearest interconnector? I'm trying to think, because the proposal that Mr. Whittaker's got, the Peel Holdings have got at Bilown for that enormous solar farm around Bilown Mansion, that would connect to a 33,000 volt box in Castletown, relatively close. If I'm right in thinking, I remember Manx Utilities said if Earystane goes ahead, then the Peel Holdings proposal for the solar farm outside Castletown won't go ahead because there isn't capacity. So I just wonder where would they be pumping the electricity from Earystane into? Where would it enter our grid? So many questions.
Q Plus is much more than a plumbing and heating trade counter. Come and explore the largest bathroom showroom on the island, where we're always updating our displays and stocking the latest bathroom designs and trends to make sure we have just what you're looking for. Visit Q Plus on Snugborough Trading Estate or find us on Facebook to see some fabulous bathroom inspiration.
Qplus.co.il. It's good to talk. It's how we get things done. So when you apply for a personal loan from Black Horse, you'll get support from one of our relationship managers who's there to talk you through your application. You could borrow up to £50,000 with up to 7 years to pay it back, and you could receive your money within 24 hours of approval. Ready to talk? Go to blackhorseoffshore.co.uk to request a call back today. Finance subject to status. Applicants must be 18 or over.
When you need a fitting memorial or headstone for a loved one, contact Manx Memorials in Peel. This long-standing family-run Manx company offer a wide range of granite and marble headstones and memorials, along with an island-wide inscription and renovation service. Manx Memorials skilled professionals will take the time to help you choose a suitable memorial, and we're proud to say we'll beat other local quotes. Call 843 861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
At ShopRite, a big slice of our range is continually priced to match or better other supermarkets. We call it Price Match Plus, the plus being what others simply don't match. Like ShopRite Savers, low prices, choice and value you won't get elsewhere, with brands like Sainsbury's and no need to travel miles. Plus, the difference being locally owned makes. We're loyal supporters of local food producers and businesses and benefit the Manx economy directly. ShopRite, proudly locally owned.
Manx Care has been in the news lately more for its troubles than successes. One of Manx Care's board members expressed concern at what our health services would become if it doesn't receive a substantial budgetary increase. Questions have been asked about whether indeed the separation of services from the health department to Manx Care is working. The health minister had a very public spat with his consultative committee and is planning to change their terms of reference in Tynwald next week. The minister gives his warts and all assessment on agenda this evening at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. 20 to 30 million pound funding gap and Manx Care under fire. Who'd be the health minister?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good afternoon. It's 10 to 1 this Monday lunchtime. Good to have you along. Thanks for dropping by. By the way, tonight, if you're in business, if you're in retail, hospitality and leisure, you can have your say in shaping the local economic strategy. This is on tonight. It's at St Port St Mary Town Hall tonight between 6 and 8. It's a local economy strategy building session. What do you want the island's local economy to look like? What do we need to make our towns and high streets more diverse and vibrant? What are some of the key barriers to growth and success within a local economy? How do we make it easier to do business in the economy? And what needs to change to encourage growth and investment? So there's a session tonight, 6 till 8 o'clock, Port St Mary Town Hall, and they'd love to see your face there if you have something to say. I'm not a keen cyclist, says Texter 108, but the Isle of Man, the mountain road isn't a motorway. Cyclists have every right to cycle over the mountain. What I take issue with, says 108, is cycling in bunches of 30, 2 and 3 abreast. Don't like that, but cyclists have a right to be there. Brian said, I completely agree with Howard and Eddie. Wind farms on the Isle of Man, I think, is madness and completely the wrong way forward regarding our future energy needs. Plans need to be scrapped now before any money is wasted. Why is there no support from government for at least a geothermal test bore? Let them give us a reason why not, instead of complete silence on this particular subject. And let's go to we've got who we got on the line here. It is Steve. Hi, Steve.
How you doing? You okay?
Good, thanks.
Living the dream. Good man. Well, as it is, things, as time moves on, we're supposed to get more advanced and things get better, not worse. And we look at the NHS and the doctors and how how the system works, it's absolute rubbish. When years ago, you'd go to the doctors, you'd walk in, you'd sit down, you explain something to them, they'd have a look at you and say, yeah, that needs to be seen. You'd turn around, get you a bit of paper, give you a blue piece of paper, go tell you to pack a bag, go to A&E, admit you to a ward, you'd be seen the next day, sorted, and back home. Now, the system, go to doctors, sit down, yes, refer you in. 3 months later, you get something to stick on your fridge. You eventually get in, you get seen, get your results. Yeah, you need to be referred in for this, they refer you in. Another 6 months, then you get seen. And this is causing, that's one of the biggest things of causing backlogs. The system is failing because of, it used to work so well when we were kids growing up, and all of a sudden, the NHS is like it is. Everything's waiting times, everything's backlogged, and that's one of the biggest reasons I see. I don't know why it's gone from how it used to be to how it is now.
So how did we get here then?
It's just the government should just please God coming past. It's just the government, they're not. I just don't understand myself how we've got here. But when I see the system how it is, it just doesn't work. It's just failing.
But, somehow all this has crept up on us, and maybe the professionals, maybe the people in the department, the minister, maybe the professionals at Manx Care know. But, as you say, it used to be relatively simple. There was, the patient and the medical professionals dealt with it. Somehow this has all crept up on us.
Well, they say you go to doctors, and years ago they'd examine you, same GPs, and they'd say, look, take this bit of paper, go home, pack an overnight bag, they'll go out and admit you. You'd be straight in, seen the next day, in the theatre if you need to go to the theatre, and straight home again. I've never known such a system in my life. And the way they run it is like, and then they start saying, oh, well, there's not enough staff, and it's because there's too many people over here, and we haven't got, excuse me, in comparison, everything was within scale many years ago when we were kids. It was scaled as it is then, now scaled as it is now. You should bring that whole system back in and give the GPs more power to admit the patients there and then if you need to be. Why have you got to go home and sit and they send an email and then that email goes on a list and it's just, first come obviously on top of the list and going down the list. The list could be 6 months to a year on some cases. People can't wait that long. There's some people really struggling out there in our community and all over the place. But, an island, we should be running nice and smooth. And the old system, if you brought that system back in, it would run smooth. Convinced of it.
Okay, I appreciate that, Steve. Thanks for calling today.
All the best. Take care.
Good to hear from you. A message in from Kira, who just said, agree with Steve. It seems that process has taken over where this is concerned. Everything nowadays seems to be about process rather than actually getting the job done. Well, who do you blame for that? I mean, where does that... Is that technology? Is that business schools? Is it MBAs? Where did all that come from? That process became more important than actually doing the job. Here's a quick message in regarding Mannin Line. Remember, later on this week, in fact, this coming Friday, we're talking about Home Affairs. Because this coming Friday, the Home Affairs Minister is on, and her Chief Executive, Jane Paul Wilson, MHK Minister, Home Affairs and Justice, and Dan Davis, Chief Exec, are on talking about their department and what it is exactly that they do. So if you want to talk about fireworks, I know fireworks important this time of the year, but obviously the constabulary, fire and rescue, prison, probation, emergency planning, anti-money laundering, disclosure and barring. What about the licensing, parole, police complaints, road safety strategy? They'll be talking about that this Friday. And so if you have something to raise regarding that, then by all means do get in touch. Email manninline@manxradio.com out of the programme hours, manninline@manxradio.com, or you can call the answer phone on 682 631. This coming Saturday, lots of MHKs have got surgeries. Dr. Allenson and Laurie Hooper are at Ramsey Town Hall this Saturday from 10 to midday. Upstairs in the coroner's office, Tim Glover and Jason Morehouse are in Colby. Daffy Kane will be at the Garth Commissioner's office at New Road in Laxey with some local commissioners, 10:30 to midday. And Anne Corlett and Chris Thomas at Douglas Central will be at All Saints Church Hall this Saturday, the 14th of October. That's it. Thanks for dropping by this lunchtime. Back again with an open line tomorrow. So whatever's on your mind, the Public Access Forum will be yours. Mannin Line back tomorrow at high noons. Thanks to Chris Work on the phones today.
WINT